Well, hello, first off, and welcome to the second session of the CNNCTS Community Conversation, the Living Labs. And thank everybody for joining us today. My name is Sergio Morales, and I am the program coordinator here for the CNNCTS project at SDSU, which is also co-led with our colleagues over at the Climate Science Alliance. Before we get started, I just want to let everybody know that first thing is that this webinar is being recorded. Second is that we are asking everybody to please save all of their questions until the end of the presentation from all of the speakers. However, feel free at any time to type in your questions in the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel and at any time. And please know who your question is directed to as well. Once our panelists wrap up and finish their presentations, we will go ahead and go with the questions to the presenters. All right, a little bit of history on CNNCTS. CNNCTS, which is the Collaborative of Native Nations for Climate Transformation and Stewardship, was basically born out of a history of partnerships between the Climate Science Alliance and San Diego State University, along with some of our partners that you're going to hear from today. A lot of this work has included a number of projects and time spent coming together to talk about the priorities and needs for building resilience to climate change. Our collaborative approaches bring together Western science and traditional knowledge, as well as Indigenous stewardship for climate adaptation, climate response, and climate resilience within our communities and our ecosystems. Towards the end of 2022, there was also an opportunity to expand these partnerships and capacity building when the California legislature allocated funding for climate action research. Those funds went to the University of California system for a grant program that was open to any California institution of higher education. Given this history of working together across the landscapes that you see on this map right here, of the ancestral territories of tribal communities across Southern California, we decided to put together a proposal in order to put that money and research into the hands of tribal partners and tribal communities so that we could envision a future where Indigenous stewardship plays a leading role in climate adaptation. The future of climate adaptation and resilience depends on these strong connections between human communities and natural landscapes, which is no better embodied than in traditional perspectives of our relationships with the land. Western science practices and academia have a long way to go, though, in learning how to best work together with tribal communities. But that's just part of what we're working to build through this project, through CNNCTS. Capacity for Indigenous-led climate action, network, and a network of allies supporting those actions. Through these relationships, these relationships do require equal evaluation of knowledges and traditional stewardship practices, as well as a commitment to working together with mutual respect, building and maintaining relationships, and overall just establishing the decorum of reciprocity. The CNNCTS partnership is focused on working with tribal communities across Southern California, from what is now known as Santa Barbara to the Mexican border, and beyond that imaginary line that has split communities apart, as well as from the Arizona border to the coast. In the spirit of inclusivity, we invited many different people, organizations, communities, and academic institutions to the table, all of which are listed in this graphic at the bottom. Our partners include multiple universities, tribal governments, and a host of tribally led or tribal serving nonprofit organizations, as well as several federal partners. The CNNCTS network works across 5 interwoven pathways to climate action, or focus areas, as we like to call them. And these are advancing science-informed climate action, which focuses on curriculum and research at our universities. And this curriculum is supposed to integrate, or is intended to integrate, Native Americans' perspectives and priorities. We're working to foster these relationships across our campuses and with tribal communities. In order to translate knowledges into practice, we've established a Living Labs program on reserve lands that offer opportunities to connect with the land and test adaptation strategies in places where it's safe to explore and even fail. To put adaptation into action, we have invested in demonstration projects and seeded pilot projects that highlight opportunities to connect with the land and test adaptation strategies. Oh, sorry, I already said that. That highlight Indigenous stewardship at work and help build capacity to share those experiences with others to build a stronger community of practice. With our expanding landscape stewardship program, this is basically we built on the Climate Science Alliance's workforce development training, which focuses on building capacity for Indigenous-led stewardship. And then finally, in order to promote social entrepreneurship, we're taking the workforce development efforts in order to efforts to the next level with business training to support individuals who would like to pursue stewardship-focused businesses to bring new economic opportunities to their communities. As I mentioned, this is the second webinar in our series focused on each of these different focal areas. So whenever you get a chance, we invite you to join us for our upcoming webinars in the series that will highlight the last three focal areas, which are on this slide. And you can go to our website to register for each one of these webinars, and we just encourage y'all to send it to your networks as well. Today's webinar will feature the Translate Knowledges into Practice focal area of Connects, which includes two main components. The first is an interactive information hub that is currently in development. The hub will host data, maps, tools, and climate stories. We anticipate a beta release around early 2025. So stay tuned for more information on that. The second element of Translate Knowledges to Practice is our Living Labs programs, which you'll learn more about today from our panelists. You're going to hear a little bit about the different reserves, ongoing projects, and opportunities available to connect with students and with community in order to put that knowledge into practice. And with that, we're going to go ahead and introduce our first speakers, which is Paisley and Liz from the Native American Land Conservancy.
Thank you, Sergio. Good morning. Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Page. I am a member of the Torres Martinez Band of Cahuilla Indians, but I work for the Native American Land Conservancy as the Education and Stewardship Program Manager. I have been doing this for the past 2 years. It's been my absolute complete joy and honor to make this offering to my community and to the larger community as well. So I'll be talking briefly about what our Learning Landscapes program is, how it began. First things first, so this is kind of in the past and to the present. That's what that means. And this is a beautiful shot of an area called Indian Pass, currently not held by Native people, but has a traditional area. It's kind of setting the tone of what I want to convey about the program in which we bring people back onto their lands that traditionally we haven't lost the connection with these lands. But as far as our hands on them and making decisions about them, largely as a Native community, we hadn't had that in a very long time. And it's wonderful to see connects and organizations like these that are advancing that way of knowledge, that we were the first peoples of the land, and we have valuable knowledge and just thousands of years of hypotheses being tested over and over again in order for that relationship to really flourish and be translated onto the land. So you can go to the next slide. So at our heart, we're dedicated to education. We strive to pass down cultural heritage and instill a profound sense of environmental stewardship within all communities. And through this knowledge, we cultivate a deep respect for ancestral lands, fostering a sustainable legacy that harmonizes with nature and ensuring a future where cultural tradition and natural resource management work hand in hand. So all of these areas that you see this picture in, these are all areas that tribal people don't hold, that basically we were removed from. And the reason I like to show them is that these are kind of the areas that I really took notice of, and you could feel the connection where I was working before I was in public lands. I was with the Coachella Valley Association of Governments. They manage the Coachella Valley Multiple Species Habitat Conservation Plan. So it's basically my job to get to know these areas all surrounding the Coachella Valley, which are traditional homelands of Cahuilla people, Serrano people. And in that relationship building, just not discovery. I don't like to use the word discovery, but in that position, I acquainted myself with all these areas that I didn't have knowledge of, and that therein lied the ambition, the strategy, the need for me to tell more people, to tell more of our people, to make us more aware of these areas where we no longer are. I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you so much. So rooted in the origins of our organization, one of the main objectives is to be part of the movement to return Indigenous lands to Indigenous hands. And due to colonization, financial coercion, and land theft by settlers, Native Americans only hold about 2% of their original homelands in what is now the United States. So when requested, we collaborate on land acquisitions for tribes and tribal communities and care for preserves that hold important cultural, spiritual, and natural values. We also pursue avenues to support regional and national land back efforts through grassroots advocacy and public policy. So what does that mean? That means we want Native hands on Native lands again. And this is what we get to do through these programs like Learning Landscapes. So very important to advocate on behalf, standing side by side with tribes, because this really benefits the larger community. When the original people are flourishing in their homelands and everything is in balance, that's when everybody benefits. So it's so very important to convey that. And go ahead to the next slide. These are also, so what comes with doing this work? In planning a learning landscape, I really am concerned about where are we needed, what protections are needed out there in these remote spaces where maybe it's BLM land, maybe it's privately or preserved land. What is needed? Are there OHV issues? Are there vandalism issues? Are there just people living out there as houseless folks? So we want to go into those areas again and really make our presence known, to really connect with the land, to sing, to practice being our cultural selves in an environment that has not been left untouched. There are so many instances of vandalism, especially seeing that the top right Indian Pass again, where thousands of years we would travel throughout the desert. It's an area that sees a lot of scratches on the rocks, and each time a runner would come through an area going to the ocean or going back home to the east, each man left a mark, or each man or woman or child left a mark. And now we go out there, and we were just out there yesterday, and there's so many instances of vandalism. And that comes from not revering the land around you. And that's kind of what we're hoping to change as well, to instill that sense of reverence for the land around you. And that starts with education. That starts with place-based education about the environment that your family lives in. All of our families live here, and we need to learn about the environment around us. Go to the next slide. When we finally learn about those things, when we learn about the ecology, when we learn about botany, we get excited about the wildflowers. We have so much life within these desert spaces and all spaces. There's so much different biodiversity. There's so many things that we enjoy here, and that is one of the most. It's not unseen, but by the larger community, it's kind of hard to relay that sense of local pride in your local species. So when we go to school, we learn about the elephants in Africa and the dolphins in the ocean, but for, some folks who are living in a desert space or whatever space that they find themselves in, maybe we don't see those animals every day, but we'd have all of these wonderful species in the areas that we're in. So that's where it begins, that sense of that this area is special. And when that happens, you can go to the next slide. All right. When that happens, it's just seeing that connection that Native people have, and also for everybody, when they find that connection, it reverberates everywhere. It reverberates into these organizations that we're all here, that we're all a part of. And that need is just so very apparent in the environment. So with the learning landscapes came to be out of the first acquisition that NALC had was Old Woman Mountains Preserve in the Mojave Desert, which was an area that was so revered and so beautiful, with amazing cave. I don't want to say too much, but amazing caves, a lot of cultural resources out there, very special to a lot of people. So an intertribal group of elders got together and actually formed a nonprofit 26 years ago. We were one of the first Indigenous-led, Indigenous-established land conservancies. So what they wanted to do, and what we're still doing, is taking people back out onto the land. So through these programs, we line up cultural speakers, researchers in their other researchers in their field, like allies, people that we can bring in and actually have youth and families, everybody, every part of the Native community come and experience like their plant knowledge or their wildlife knowledge or their ecosystem knowledge. It just all works together so that we have more of that inherent land management unlocks. And that I think that a lot of us need that. And we're so busy, and we've been integrated into this society with all of those, every issue that comes along with that. We're people of the times. So we're always kind of distracted. My mission, and I would say also the mission of the Native American Land Conservancy, is to bring in more cultural people and make them more aware that this is important, this protection of natural spaces, and that the larger community can benefit from that, because more protection is better for the environment. We don't have as many folks out there ripping up the desert, or we don't have as many folks out there just kind of doing whatever they feel like they can, especially with vandalism and theft. Those are very real issues that we field every day. Looting, poaching of plants, specific plants to this area is such a big issue. And this is part of that education of bringing on Native people, because once they feel that connection, the land wakes up. So this is just a few examples of the stewardship activities that we do. We clean up our own preserves, but we also extend out into different areas, again, places that we don't hold, that neither NALC holds, or tribal people don't hold, public lands. So we go out there and actually enjoy it and work on it and gather and honor those ancestral relationships that we have to the land. You can go to the next slide. This is just more of the same of bringing people onto the land, explaining the differences in the ecosystem, and seeing those relationships happen is just so very special. You can go to the next one. I don't want to take up too much time. But in this role, we've brought so many people via this program, which can be, again, cultural speakers. It can be other conservation organizations coming in and explaining what they do to cultural people and also to the larger community. Can also be art and film. It's been a really great pleasure to organize the Estulinum Puppet Film Festival that I have, where we feature stories all across Indian country of Natives doing wonderful work in the realms of conservation, but also of reconnection to the land. So it's really been a fabulous thing to be a part of. And you can see, I want to brag about all the happy faces in these photos. You can go to the next slide. And yeah, in conclusion, we want to work with anybody where we're wanted and needed. So feel free to contact us anytime. We're planning a learning landscapes in the Quechan area, or Fort Yuma Quechan tribe. We're busily doing that. We're also getting ready for a Connected Landscapes program for Native American Heritage Month up in Joshua Tree, bringing that kind of awareness of our organization and of organizations like ours. Land back is happening, and I think it's going to be wonderful for everyone. So thank you very much for this opportunity to come briefly speak. I hope that was good enough.
That was perfect. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for presenting. And I'll say again, if you guys have any questions for Liz or Paisley, feel free to put them in the Q&A chat box, and we'll get to them at the very end. And thank you guys for presenting. Up next, we have Heather Constable from UC Santa Barbara.
Hi, good morning. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're very excited to be part of this project. I'm briefly going to introduce the natural reserve system and some of the reserves that are part of UC Santa Barbara. You'll be hearing more about the system, especially in Southern California with the UCR system in a minute. Advance, please. The UC Natural Reserve System, as part of this Connects grant, has an opportunity to make more connection with our Indigenous partners and the original stewards of this land. The UC system actually administers the protected lands for research, education, outreach, and responsible stewardship. There is currently 41 reserves protecting thousands of acres of land in California across most of the major ecosystems. And we work in collaborations with national and state parks and private landholders and provide access to researchers and classes so they can come do field work and understand the effects of climate change and learn about wise stewardship. University of Santa Barbara here down, as you see around Point Conception, labeled in pink. The two reserves I'll introduce today briefly is Santa Cruz Island Reserve and then Sedgwick Reserve, which is inland a bit. Next slide, please. All of these in the UC Santa Barbara Reserve areas are part of the Chumash territory. This is the group that we're looking to connect more with. We do have some existing initiatives. We welcome other collaborations as well, but we're proud to be in the lineage of people who take care of these lands, and I find that an important and honorific responsibility. Thank you. Next slide. Santa Cruz Island out in the Channel Islands is owned by the Nature Conservancy and the National Park Service. The UC Natural Reserve System does have a field station in the middle of the island. There's areas for camping or staying overnight. It's kind of difficult to get to, but it's an important area and we'd like to welcome more groups to come out. Currently, we're starting this initiative, so we're supporting existing Chumash initiatives and we're welcoming some more. Next slide. The Sedgwick Reserve is more in the center, is also a field station for researchers, university level classes, K through 12 courses, and community groups. We protect about 6,000 acres of oak woodland and grasslands and coastal sage scrub chaparral. And it's an important place for research on oak ecology, lots of different astronomy, soil science, geology, remote sensing. There's every flavor of researcher comes out there and works with us. One of the important initiatives that we have in collaboration with the Connects project is our prescribed burn program. Next slide. The TREX, which is the Prescribed Burn Training Exchange, welcomes students who are professionals from all across the Western Seaboard and some international collaborators as well to learn how to do prescribed burn. Working with some of our partners through Connects, including the Native Coast Action Network, the Climate Science Alliance, and the Chumash Environmental Office. We're welcoming some practitioners in this upcoming TREX, which will be in November. About 10 of those students have Indigenous backgrounds, and we're looking forward to working with them. There's some Indigenous programming as part of the training on how to do prescribed burns. And it's good to have that exchange so everybody learns. And we're trying to learn how that small scale fire can benefit the habitat. Having the prescribed burns, next slide, please, is really important to our research. So not only is it a training opportunity where we're supporting a state initiative to train up a new workforce of people who can do prescribed burn, because in the initiative, there's about a plan to treat 1 million acres for wildfire resilience, and 400,000 of those acres would be treated with prescribed burn. There's just not enough people who know how to do this, and it's very important to have Indigenous practitioners in with that mix. It also provides unique research opportunities where we can gather baseline data ahead of time. We can do research during and after the fire, like this Fire Sense project, which is remote sensing using high spectral imagery. And that supports a federal initiative to understand more about research, more about wildfire behavior, predicting wildfires, the fuel loads ahead of time, looking at the moisture sensing, the severity, and how they spread. Some of the other researchers study fire ecology, fuels and fire behavior, restoration, and a whole suite of things. It also meets our stewardship goals where we can reduce some wildfire risk and understand how to better steward coastal sage scrub habitat, which is really important. And then also just the opportunities for collaboration and reaching out with other practitioners across the state and across the world who are trying to learn how to deal with wildfire in a changing climate. Next slide, please. This also gives us an opportunity to connect with our community. So we offer a Fire Followers Tour. The next one will be in April, and I'll make sure that this network gets all the information about that. We invite the practitioners who came and participated in the fire to see how the landscape has changed since then. Sometimes in the spring, we get some beautiful fire following flowers that haven't been recorded on the reserve for decades. And just to see the recovery and how it changes is really remarkable. And we'd be happy to welcome people to come and see that this spring. Next slide. So please contact us. We're a venue. We'd be happy to welcome groups for conferences or gatherings. If you have any school or initiatives where you want people to stay overnight or come outdoors and learn about ecology, we're welcome. There's a lot of information here to look more into the UCNRS. Again, my name is Heather Constable. I'm the director of Sedgwick Reserve. Our contact for Santa Cruz Island Preserve is Carrie Johnson. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heather. Beautiful presentation as well. And even I'm learning so much. Up next, we have the next panelist speaking is Kimberly Hammett from UC Riverside.
Sorry, I was muted. Hi, everybody. I am the faculty director of all the UC Riverside Reserves. Every campus has a faculty director, a campus administrator, hopefully, and then all the people who do all the work on the ground, and they are the directors at the reserves. So it's because of them that everything works so well in the UC system for the reserves. Next slide. So Heather gave you a little introduction, but the UCNRS has 9 campuses that are all UC campuses, and each of those campuses is charged with stewarding some of the reserves, and all of those reserves are on land that we would like to keep in good shape and preserve as much as we can of the native habitat. I gave you the web link to the overall organizational web so you can peruse it if you need to. But all of our reserves, there's about 750,000 acres, are on ancestral tribal land. So we all owe a lot of what we do to all of the efforts that were made ancestrally on those lands. And it's, as Heather pointed out, it's a real honor to try to keep those intact. Next slide. So UC Riverside has, depending on how you count, 6 reserves, but I'm showing 6 reserves that are very prominent. They're blown up on the Southern California map. But, and those reserves are on land that were ancestral homes to various different nations. At the Granite Mountains, there's Paiute, Mojave, and Chemehuevi ancestral occupation. At the James San Jacinto Mountain Reserves, there's Cahuilla, and Cahuilla is throughout the next 3 reserves. Boyd Deep Canyon Desert Research Center, which is in the desert, near Palm Desert, is also Cahuilla, and then the Mott Rimrock Reserve, which is out near Paris, is Cahuilla, and also Liseño, And then the other reserve we have is more in the oak woodlands. It's Emerson Oaks Reserve, and it's Liceno in origin. But you can see them all here. And yeah, we really appreciate the opportunity to help steward those lands. So next slide. So we have several different things, 2 different main tasks at UC Riverside to do in connection with the Connects grant. And one of them is connecting across campuses. And I don't mean UC campuses, I mean college campuses as much as we can, and bringing students to these natural areas that are so precious. And we're hoping to really increase the opportunity for Native students to be, students from Native nations to be attached in some way to the reserves. So we offer an internship, and it introduces students to the natural reserve system. And generally, we try to get students who have not traditionally had access at all. So that could be socioeconomic reasons or a variety of other reasons, but we're focusing a lot of our efforts on trying to reconnect Native nation students to at least some former tribal land, if not all kinds of former tribal land. In this internship, students work with a PI or a professor at UCR or another campus that's working on the reserves, the UCR reserves, for 10 weeks. We give them a generous stipend that will help them get through the summer. They get lots of experience and lots of connections. They meet different people from all kinds of agencies, as well as the reserve directors, who really are the heartbeat of the current efforts to maintain that land. So we're hoping that we can provide good role modeling for things that people can get involved with pretty easily. It's open to students all over, college students. I have to make sure it's college students all over Southern California. And I just have some of our students shown here just to show we get together, we get them together as a group. They have a lot of time to get to know each other, and then they sort of spread out across all of the reserves to work with a PI. They do a lot of research for the PI, but the point of the grant is to give them access, connection, and some kind of understanding of what we're doing and what they might be able to do if they wanted to do something more. We've had 3 tribal students so far, and one of them, there's Mariah up here, Genesis here, and then I have a picture of Marshall. I guess that's Marshall down here, who are all tribal students that came to us through various avenues, in this case via UC Riverside. Can I have the next slide? So the reserves themselves, there are 5 of them I'm going to highlight. They are the James San Jacinto Mountain Reserve, which is near Idlewild. It's at about 5,000 feet. It's 50 miles from Riverside in an oak pine woodland. It boasts having the largest tree in Southern California, which we call the council tree in honor of the former residents. It was a gathering place for gathering acorns in the fall, and so there's tons of sign of former peoples living there, with lots of metates into the granite, and it's just a really wonderful place. We have, at all the reserves, we have the rule that if you find something that's of ancestral origin, you leave it, and you don't touch it, and you walk away. And every reserve has some sort of evidence of that. So the James is pretty special. Mount Rimrock, all the reserves are special. Mount Rimrock Reserve is sitting in the area around Paris, and it's coastal sage scrub. It's 15 miles from Riverside, and it's at an elevation of 1,500 feet. Again, it had a huge amount of ancestral occupation or ownership, and there's evidence all over the place. But it's a beautiful area. It's got lots of kangaroo rats and other very cool animals, many rattlesnakes and so on. So it's just a really wonderful place. Next slide. Granite Mountains Desert Research Reserve is out near Kelso, out deep into the desert, 165, the Mojave Desert, 165 miles from Riverside. And it's a really large reserve that goes from 3,000 to 6,000 feet in elevation. It's pinyon juniper woodland and sagebrush, but that's all sits in a fractured granitic canyon, and it's breathtaking. You're driving along the Mojave Desert, you turn left and you turn left again, and you're in this unbelievably beautiful habitat. Again, there's a lot of former occupation, there's caves and things on the ground. It's a really amazing place. And one thing I want to point out is these reserves are not open to the general public because we keep them for research, outreach, and education. So there's a lot of classes there, but they are open if you just connect yourself to the reserve director. You can find a way to probably make a reservation and come see the reserves. We want to protect things intact, and so we don't have it open to the general public. So another reserve is the Boyd Deep Canyon Reserve. I know some of you have been there recently in connection with Connects. It's in the Santa Rosa Mountains out near Indian Wells. It's pinyon juniper down to the Colorado Desert, 90 miles from campus, and it goes, again, it's a very large reserve that goes from 30 feet up to 5,000 feet. And it's stunning in the spring when there's a desert bloom and everything starts blooming. The ocotillo are amazing, and there's an ocotillo here for you to look at. Okay, next slide. Finally, I told you there's the Emerson Oak Reserve down near Temecula. It crosses 4 climatic zones from mountain down to interior valley, including desert and coastal coastal plant zones. It's they all converge in this oak woodland that's really beautiful, dense oak, lots of shade until there's not, and then there's lots of sun. It's home to many different residents besides human residents, many bobcats, mountain lions, coyotes, just birds, all kinds of things. It's at 2,000 feet in elevation, going up to 4,000 feet in elevation. And again, it's right outside of Temecula. Okay, next slide. So our first job with Connects is to help run this internship to introduce people to the reserves. Our other job is connecting with the Native Nations community and trying to reach out to establish other kinds of connections with Connects members. So we want to add projects that would help reestablish relationships. Maybe it's a co-stewardship, in air quotes, kind of some of the native habitats, the plant habitats that are important to ancestral practices. Helping to maintain stewardship of that land is really important to us. And we would really like to do it not only from the Western science perspective, but also from taking into account more tribal ecological knowledge or ancestral knowledge, and being aware of what's precious and what we need to make sure to take a little extra time to protect. That's very important to everybody. And then, of course, we're trying to make sure that students are aware of opportunities on these lands. So we work a lot with the Native American student programs at UC Riverside, and we're reaching out to people. We're meeting all kinds of people through the Connects program that can help us reach out and make sure we're associated with the right people. Okay, next slide. So, all of this is based on building a relationship with all kinds of people, but people in the Connects community. And we believe that we owe a lot of reciprocity in order to pay back sort of the fact that we're honored to be on this land and we want to help protect it. So we're very interested in some sort of mutual learning and some sort of mutual stewardship and understanding of the land. As I said before, we want to bring traditional ecological knowledge back into the discussion about how to steward the land. And we want to support students in their education so they can someday have more influence on these precious lands. Next slide. So connections and contacts. If you're interested in the Connect stewardship, we will have the call out for the stewards for next summer. We usually take 8 or 10 of them, up to 10 of them, and they could all be tribal students as far as I'm concerned. So please, if you have students that you know would be interested, ask them to apply. We like them to be from the Southern California area because we don't have a way to house everybody, but it's a really great program. And then for other informations about the UCR Natural Reserves, I have a link below, or you can go to the University of California NRS site that I referenced above, or you can email me, kimhammond@ucr.edu. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Kim.
Sure.
And as we're going along, Megan is adding all of these links and sites in the chat. So if at any point you want to start a chat or check out their website, it's in the chat. We will also send out this information later on after the webinar has been completed. So fear not, you will have all of these links in hand. And our next presenter is David Lipton from San Diego State University.
All right, hi everybody. My name is David Lipson. I'm a professor in the Department of Biology, and I am the director of the SDSU Field Stations program. We're a little bit jealous of the UC reserve system. But we're not connected with the other reserves that CSU might have. We just managed 2 here in San Diego and Riverside County. So next slide, please. Oh, there we go. So as you can see, our stated mission is to manage land for research, education, and the preservation of native habitat and biodiversity. We haven't quite figured out a good way of also including in the statement the fact that we care very much about preservation of cultural resources, and that the way to really the best strategy for this mission is to have collaborations with the people who've traditionally called these lands their home. So one of our reserves is Santa Margarita Ecological Reserve, SMR for short. This one is right on the San Diego Riverside border near Temecula and Fallbrook. It was initially granted to the university in 1962, and it's grown through various land acquisitions. Has 5,000 acres, and including the initial stretch of the Santa Margarita River, which is a very special place. This is sort of defined by the wildland urban interface. It's a preserve right next to a freeway and right next to a really growing municipal area in Temecula, and therefore a critical wildlife habitat and part of the multiple species habitat conservation plan, and sacred land for many. Our nearest neighbors are the Pechanga, but there's stories all over about the land there in terms of the creation stories and sacred places. Our other reserve, I hope this is animated. Try the next. Yes, there it is. Sky Oaks Field Station, higher elevation near Warner Springs. We get a little snow there, which is exciting for us in Southern California. So Chaparral, and there's some beautiful riparian areas with oaks and pines. And this area, a long history, really complex fire history. And the research history there, looking at climate change and fire ecology has been one of the major themes. So next slide, please. And this gives you a sense of where they are in the map. Again, the Santa Margarita Ecological Reserve, complex ownership. You can see that we manage lands that are, under the auspices of various groups, the university, the SDSU Foundation, the Nature Conservancy, Department of Fish and Wildlife, BLM, and various other metropolitan areas. Sky Oaks, and you can also see these two beautiful areas of the Santa Ana and then the Palomar region split apart by the 15, really important in terms of research, connectivity of the habitat. Sky Oaks, probably best defined by its complex fire history. So there's a fire map overlaid where you can see several of the recent fires, and we've taken advantage of some of that for research. Next slide, please. So first of all, how we connect across campus, I think there should be an animation with a number of photos. Yeah, there we go. So we have many researchers from our university and other places. We have classes, and these classes were originally biology and geology classes, but now we've had marketing and engineering, and now some, thanks to Connects, some Native American studies classes. We have graduate student retreats where we get a new cohort of students and they all spend some time up there. And we've even have some faculty retreats. You can actually see our campus president, Adela, drinking some fresh squeezed orange juice there in that one shot. So they know who we are now, which is nice. So next slide, please. Connecting with community, like Kim mentioned, these reserves are not open to the general public, but we do, especially living in a population dense area. Please click the next button so we can start this animation. We have a docent-led hike program led by one of our volunteers, Beth, and other very helpful volunteers. You can access that through the webpage and get a schedule of those things. The volunteers just help run everything. You can see this wine harvest. We have mostly native lands, but also some, native plant habitats, but also some 20 acres of agriculture, so including a vineyard and avocado and orange. And so we have volunteers come and help. We have a lot of outreach events for K through 12 classes and children's groups, Boy Scouts, things like that. Brightside is a campus organization that helps distribute food to food deserts, and we provide some of food for that effort. Jamie, shown there with all the oranges, also has provided food to other charitable donations, the Fallbrook Food Pantry and Plant People. And also should point out, we're connected with the HPREN Real-Time Fire Monitoring Network. They have a really interesting webpage. You can see real-time cameras at both of our field sites in several places. And this is really helpful for keeping track of fire. And so that's a great resource for the community that we're happy to share in. Next slide, please. We also work a lot with agencies and non-governmental organizations. This was a really impressive report looking at the possibility of wildlife connectivity across the 15. And so this included Nature Conservancy and the Department of Transportation and just many others. We have mountain lions and many other creatures that are finding it hard to cross that 15 corridor. And next slide, please, or next animation. And also they're trying in the very special Santa Margarita River to reintroduce this endangered steelhead trout. And overall, I think there should be one more. And yes, like I said, we're part of the an important criterion area in the multiple species habitat conservation. Next slide, please. Oh, cute animals. And finally, so again, getting back to developing our relationships with the tribal groups. In the upper right, you can see this is thanks to Connects. This was a wonderful day at Sky Oaks. We had a group of people come out and walk around. It was, I think, the first time for everyone to be, for those individuals to be there. And they even did a little bit of gathering. We discussed just making it available to them for, there were several tribes represented here. And we discussed the issues of possibly looking into some burning, some cultural burning at that site. So those discussions are ongoing. Thanks largely in part to work by Pablo, our reserve manager, and working with Myra and other people from Pechanga. We've had a relationship with our neighbors there, and they've been coming on site for ceremonies and gathering, and they've renamed our North Station Kamalam Pamki and built us a nice little willow hut there. Or, well, I think they probably built it for them. And I wanted to advertise this hike at Santa Margarita that Christina Cranwell has been organizing. There's lots of room, so please contact her. We're afraid that we'd have to cancel if we don't get more people showing up. But anyone who showed up, you're welcome. But we want more people to please join us. So see Cranwell at sdsu.edu. That's the easiest way, and she can direct you to how to register. Just let her know that you're interested in coming. And so there'll be a walk around and talks about research and other activities around the research. Thanks, Megan, for putting that in the chat. Okay, then I think the last slide. Just some more information. Like I said, please come and have some of our fresh squeezed orange juice. It's quite good. You can see the vineyard in the background. We also may be able to share a wine if that's appropriate. And so there's contact information. My email up at the top, Pablo Bryant, who's been here for decades and knows everything about our reserves. Jamie Bordone, who is together with Christina running our grove and taking care of many other operations. And Christina has also been our main contact for Connects. And so she's been helping organize a lot of the activities at our field stations with Connects. And we have a webpage and an Instagram, which we haven't updated enough. So I'm a little bit embarrassed, but we have lots of content to put there. So look for that in the future. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, David. One thing I will say about the Smear hike, please join us, contact Christina. You'll get a chance to meet us, some of our partners and other Connect partners at these hikes. So if you want to connect with them on a more, I want to say personal level in person, definitely come join the hike. Let's see. I also want to say a big thank you to all of our panelists who presented today. And the great work they're doing to elevate traditional ecological knowledge, Indigenous voices, and perspectives, something that's been lost from Western science. Like I said, it's taken Western science and academia quite a bit to get to this point, but we're here now. Time to continue to advance that and get that moving forward. On the screen, you'll see ways to connect with Connects, our blogs, newsletter, follow us on Instagram if you want to know more about what we're doing, what our partners are doing, especially our blog. We're constantly highlighting the different projects going on, not just here at SDSU or academia, but some of the other partners, NALC, NCAN, etc. So definitely check us out. And with that, I think, yeah, we're gonna go, I'm gonna stop sharing, and we're gonna go on to Q&A.
Well, I see if we don't have any questions in the Q&A box yet, but I thought I could throw something out to the group. I'm curious, how this whole process has been for you. I think starting out with Liz, it was really wonderful to see what you all have built in that Learning Landscapes program over such a long history of running it. And it was definitely an inspiration for Connects. And I know for many of you at the research reserves, right, we're at the beginning of our journey of, trying to establish more relationships and move forward into something like that. So I'm curious from each of you, like, what do you feel like this has brought to you and what has challenged you and what are you looking forward to in the next year?
I think I'm definitely looking forward to more time, especially we did organize a learning landscape at Boyd Deep Canyon. That was really, really just eye-opening for everybody involved who was there. We had language lessons and we sang. There were bird singers present and the kids who camped out had a really wonderful time. And I just look forward to growing that relationship and coming back over and over again. And it was pretty easy. It was really wonderful to see that these relationships are being established and they're being nurtured. And that's kind of the thing that we advocate for is meaningful tribal engagement. It's not just asking us for involvement. It's coming back over and over again and actually absorbing everything and standing alongside us. And I do look back really fondly about that whole experience because I had never been to Boyd Deep Canyon, and I'm a person from Torres Martinez, and those were our original village sites, and to see not only the impact of the city and like uh, colonization, basically, you know, in those private golf courses that kind of interfere your way into Boyd Deep Canyon, that was so impactful and but I just look forward to more of this, of opening it up more, because where we had no difficulty doing it, I do know that there is some resistance to it. There is, and those relationships do need to be established and really navigated in a tactful way that includes everybody. But from my experience from doing that learning landscape and from doing all of them, no real challenges have been met yet by me, but I do know that those challenges have been out there traditionally, but we're seeing that this big turnaround. Even the 6 years that I've been kind of working in the realm of conservation, this kind of organization, this grant wasn't around then. It was still a matter of trying to get a voice, of trying to get a foot in the door for students who were cultural students who want to be out there in the sciences, and that's traditionally who we are. We're all scientists. So yeah.
That's good, yeah.
I'd
Yeah,
like
go
to
ahead.
echo. I'd like to echo that since Liz was talking about the trip to Deep Canyon, it was a really powerful experience on both sides, I think, and it was really it was something that we learned a lot about, and I'm really looking forward to strengthening that relationship, learning more from each other about different different cultures of land stewardship and how we can move that forward together with the stewardship of the land that we have here. I think that's going to be really important in the future.
And I'd just like to add something on a similar note. When we had the event at Sky Oaks, and we walked through the riparian area in particular, where there were so many plants that were important food sources and fiber sources. And I've always thought it's one of my favorite places is the I think it's called Coombs Creek, it's a riparian area. It's quite beautiful. And but the perspective I didn't realize that they all felt all of our tribal partners that visited that day really felt like this landscape had been sort of curated, had been they had the sense that this was someone's home, and that these plants were maybe not randomly placed, not just distributed randomly like I might as a plant ecologist think, but there may have been some intentionality to the plant community there. And I thought that was a really cool perspective that I would not have noticed. So.
Heather or Kim? Some about, what has been challenging, or, what do you think has really grown out of this that maybe you didn't expect or you were hoping for, and you're excited that it's come to fruition? Oh, you're on mute, Kim.
I'm trying to get everybody to turn their screen on so we can see who they are, but it doesn't seem like we hooked them up the right way. In any case, what has been challenging? Finding enough students that from the Native American community has been challenging. I think people are timid to apply also, so partly we need to do a better job advertising ourselves so we can be known as a trusted source, a way to make to learn stuff for the summer. That's a challenge. Figuring out how to bring people in to do meaningful collaborative work with us. We don't want to tell somebody what to do. I mean, we're good at that and we could do that, but that's not the point. We want to have sort of a collaborative discussion about what can be done. And even if it's something like removing invasive species, we'd like to learn a lot as we go, because I think a lot of what's missing in all of this is a mutual appreciation and then a basis for growing a mutual protective understanding about the land. It doesn't seem like any of us are going away, so we need to do a better job at working together and protecting this stuff. It's really important. So not too many bad challenges, but just challenges.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up with that. I think one of the challenges working with the University of California system is that we want to be in step, but there's lots of individual relationships that this is what these kinds of things are built on. And the Connects grant has kind of given us a bridge for that, like an ability to reach out to other individuals, to make connections, to learn from each other, to open ourselves up as resources. And that can be challenging without having, like an introduction, a personal introduction like this. Another thing with the prescribed burn training is that this process, I didn't realize how expensive it is. And it's hard to get in defined 10 days to be able to take off from work and to participate, plus the equipment time, and sometimes there's a charge for the class. It's really prohibitive for a lot of people. So with the Connects groups and the collaborations that we have, we're able to reach out to groups that need the training, that are looking for the training, and give them some more resources to be able to participate. So those are challenges, but also solutions that come in having like a network of friends like this to rely on.
Thanks for that perspective, Heather. I will say part of what Connects is all about is connecting. And a lot of times it starts with that initial like one-to-one relationship, and then it can grow from there. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. I know that we're all very interested in making these relationships. I think across the UCNRS, we're very open to this, and it's just having that initial first step and welcome that I think is important.
Also, I'll point out that at least when I looked last, our executive director in Oakland is on the call, Steve Monfort, and although we can't see him, he's also very supportive and interested in all of this and keeping track of what's going on. So this connection doesn't stop with us. It goes all over the state. And even though we're in Southern California, hopefully we can serve as a model for how to do it again, other places, and connect all of California eventually. And we're all on the same page. Steve was talking to somebody else in the Office of the President about some sort of co-stewardship model. And everybody's thinking about it. Everybody wants to do it. I don't say that we're not going to be clumsy as hell about it. We are. But I think everybody really wants to make an effort to reach out and do something that's supportive and productive.
I appreciate that. I mean, I think kind of the difference in, what you were describing, Heather, and what you're trying to scale, what you're talking about, Kim, is that it goes from individual relationships to how can you make them sort of system-wide programs and policies and have a larger relationship. So I appreciate that there's a challenge there in getting from one very different scale to another. But we're here to help support in whatever way we can. And I did put the bug in Steve's ear to join us. So thanks for being here, Steve. I think Sergio would like to pose some questions from the audience to you all.
We have two questions from Arlene. The first one is directed towards Elizabeth. She wants to know, I would like to ask Elizabeth if we would be able to share some of her organization's information with California Indian Nations College if it is not already sent to them. I believe the students there would like to hike their ancestral areas.
We actually do enjoy a pretty good relationship with SYNC. We had a walk just a couple of weekends ago. We took the SYNC hiking club. out to a cultural area that's on public lands again with a couple of different educators, and we had a really wonderful time. It might just been a matter of missing it, but just keep track of us. We are pretty prominent on social media, and if you join our newsletter, we're happy to send along all those invites. We do have the occasional like speaking landscapes as in another so we have learning landscapes. We also have speaking landscapes, which is more like a presenter heavy, where we get educators or native cultural educators as well to come and do presentations. And yeah, that's just out there. And Sync has been wonderful, and I really, it is a challenge to get a lot of native students involved in this field, like conservation, but I'm just so encouraged whenever I do see them, and they are excited. But it is a matter of consistently coming and consistently showing up to them. So don't stop. Just keep on coming.
Cool. The next question is also from Marlene. She says, how would I, as a California native student attending UCR and the NACWD program at the Living Desert and Zoo, attend some of the preservation activities, hikes, and programs with Agua Caliente and UCR? I would like to learn as much as I can.
With Agua Caliente, since we're an intertribal organization, I can't speak to what different programs that Agua Caliente does have out there. I do know that the Cultural Museum is really remarkable, and it's also another really requirement if you're coming to Palm Springs to kind of stop in and learn about the history of the folks in Palm Springs. And as a nation, you know, those are our cousins too. So it's a good place to learn. Indian Canyons and Taquas Canyon, they're always there as well. There's some wonderful rangers that we know, and it's a really beautiful space to get to see. And we actually it's always a privilege to be involved in the cultural programming there, and that's specifically for the Native community, and we do basket weaving out there. So it's wonderful. For our events, though, we do have speaking landscapes that do take place on our preserves. We have 4 different preserves. One is up in Central California, so we work with the Kwaisu and Tabatalabal folks up there. But for the ones, the preserves that are closer to Coachella Valley, Moronga Basin, Hunapachpahaka is not currently open to the public, but we do have programming coming up in November with like tours of the property and you know, bird walks and different things like that. So it's just a matter of keeping up to date via social media or that newsletter. I hope that answered okay.
For the UCR reserves, we try to keep the Connects group in general cognizant of when we have activities. Right now, we don't have a lot coming up, but we're still trying to schedule them. And so going through the Native Americans student programs at UCR would be good if we'll let them know, and just continuing to check the Connects social media sites.
Thank you for clarifying on those. I also want to maybe ask all the panelists if you all have social media, Instagram pages that we could share out with everybody. Please email them to me so that when I set up this recording, I could send, I could send those Instagram handles, social media handles, contact information to everybody.
Sergio, mine's in the slides. So
Perfect. Thank you.
I had a quick question following on Arlene's. Kim, have you had success in reaching out to California Indian Nations College for your internship program?
no, but I will do that. I part of the problem is I am completely a newbie on knowing how to reach out, and so I would love to have a connection there, Arlene, because I will plaster you or really spam you with our application materials when that happens.
Well, I was also going to suggest that since Native American Land Conservancy has a strong relationship with them, that we might be able to help get that through the Connects network as well. I think as many places as we can get that information out, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, we need to do better.
It's a process.
All right, yeah, I think if we don't have any more questions, comments, we could go ahead and wrap up this webinar. Again, I want to thank everybody for attending and for presenting today. It's very important that we get this information out there and exactly what we're doing so that we can connect not just between our networks and but to get the word out to everybody else and expand this network to continue this great work that everybody's doing.